You got military commander general at Fort Campbell issues new guidelines for all you young men that are out there shouldering your rifle, for all of you parents who sent your kids to the military because maybe that was part of your lineage, that's where your family came from, or you wanted them to have the aspect of enjoying serving their family. This is what the U.S. government, in effect, does. Where it says commanding general at Fort Campbell issues new guidelines, right? This is as of the 13th, came out in the morning, came out yesterday, today in the morning, says those who have not received, those soldiers who have not received the poke, it says you cannot take pass or leave, right? So if you plan on, you wanted to go on vacation, maybe you wanted to see your family, the government says you didn't take the poke, sorry, not going to happen. You need to stay. Not only does it say that, it says you are considered non-deployable. And it's like, shit, if I was a young man in the military and these were the ultimatums that you gave me, I'd be like, shit, good luck, old man. You go shoulder your rifle against those Chinese and let me know how that works out with your vaccinated ass. And we'll see if this man doesn't come back waiting for all these young men to come back out there and pull his ass out after he gets shot by the Chinese trying to be slick. It's like, shoot, if that's the thanks that you get, I would just be like, fuck it, I'm out. I'd be like, you know what? Maybe for all the, especially for all you considering going in, I would just be like, nah, I'm good. You know what? Fuck your couch. It's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna do it. Because this is the thanks that you get for people who have almost no chance of getting sick. I've shown young people who have unfortunately ended up with blood clots in the brain. The reality is that they don't care. Like I've said in numerous videos, it has really nothing to do with the poke. It has really to do with your compliance, even all the way down to the young ones, even down to your children. They're trying to get you in every way, shape, or form to relinquish your freedom because they can't take it from you. You cannot take freedom from somebody, right? Because that's up here. Even if they throw you in a jail cell, or if they throw you on a plantation up here, you're like, I'm free. I'm free as a bird in here. But that's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for you to feel oppressed. They want you to feel the oppression in here. They want you to give up in here, in your head. To the point where, like I said before, you got the quartering posting. Like I said, Mets, Yankees to offer tickets for those who get the poke. Otherwise, we're gonna have separate sections for those who got the poke and for those who didn't. So they're like, what's it gonna take? We'll get you some tickets, right? How about some beer? You can't drink, it's okay. We'll get you something else. We'll find something else that you're interested in. We'll get you $100 coupon. How about $100 bond, right? You like Tesla? You like Elon Musk? How about we raffle off? How about we raffle off a Tesla for you? And of course, you've even got, who was it? Maybe you like burgers, right?
Free,
How about
free
burgers?
fries when you get vaccinated?
Free fries.
I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries? Wait a minute. But there's also a burger element to this? Let me.
And this is how badly they're trying to sell you. And this is how ignorant that they think. This is how much they value your freedom. They're just like, all right, how about a burger? How about a burger and fries? We'll throw in a shake. Is that good enough for you?
Let me check with Bill Neathart. Is it too early in the day to eat a burger? No. This can be breakfast? Okay. I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But
This guy is such a simp, man.
if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination.
Hey, free Shake Shack. Get your voucher for a burger and sandwich, or a sandwich. As if you get the poke at an NYC mobile clinic. It says free fries too. Get free fries with a burger and shake. It says if you have proof that you took the poke, hey, we'll get you free fries, free shake, your choice, vanilla chocolate. You let me know, it's yours. Whatever it takes, as long as you take the poke. Now it's interesting. You know, a lot of people wouldn't be so suspicious if at the very least they were like consistent. Even the media isn't consistent. Or of course you have a post, a heading from the Washington Post, right? So this was back, as you can see down here, in April 2020, where they said everyone wore, right? Everybody wore it in 1918 in regards to the flu, and it says they were useless, right? Because it didn't do anything. It didn't do anything to preserve individuals from actually getting sick and dying. That was the reality. And most of these people didn't die from the flu. They died from bacterial pneumonia. And then, of course, March a little bit, about a year later, right now they have a different opinion. So abandoning those face coverings is a terrible idea. The 1918 pandemic shows us why. 100%, right? It's the exact same newspaper. Here, they're speaking the truth, that the reality is that they did shit. But over here, they're just like, oh, well, we got to get back in line. Government says this is not the correct information that we're supposed to put out. We didn't get the update for today's propaganda. And so even like I talked about yesterday, where you have the governor, Mike DeWine, the other day, I had posted where they had said that there were going to be, for all of the adults, right? If you like, you like a little bit of gambling, maybe you like to do a little lotto on the weekends. Well, hey, if you got the poke, we're going to raffle away $1 million every week for the next 5 weeks. And guess where it's going to come from? It's going to come from the poke fund. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Isn't this supposed to go for like jobless, unemployment, infrastructure, stuff that's actually important, that's going to create jobs, be able to put food on the table? And they're just like raffling this shit away. It's like, no, what we really need is we really need you to get that poke. That's the only thing that matters. Doesn't matter if they're going to give you a car, burger, shake, fries, t-shirts, whatever it takes, right? Maybe we'll get you to college tuition. There was another one talking about, this is the guy right here, right? You can see the right here. Wednesday, May 26th, so we will announce the winner of a drawing of all those 17-year-old and under who took the poke, and the winner will receive a full or 4-year scholarship to Ohio State University. It says this will include tuition, room, and board. And they're like, what is it going to take for you to get the poke? That's all that matters. I mean, these people are out here offering you burgers and fries, and I'd be like, why don't you just offer me a gym membership? Since overwhelmingly the vast majority of the people who ended up hospitalized, at least were young, were obese. So why don't we get people in the gym? Why don't we get you like a private gym instructor, right? Why don't we offer you a year's, send you off to Bally's, or we'll send you off to New York Sports Club or whatever gym that's in your local. Make sure you get there. You know what? We're going to want a verification. We want you to go there at least 2 to 3 times a week because we're paying for it and we want to make sure you don't get sick. But that's not what they want you to do. They want you to sit here and get fat, eat burgers and fries, and have a shake on top. But as long as you got the poke, that's the only thing that matters. Right? That's why I keep saying it. It has nothing to do with the cough, has everything to do with you taking the poke. To the point where even if you took the poke, where Stanford University says even if you took the poke, you still got to wear a mask, still got to social distance, still got to, you still got to be covered up. And on top of that, you still got to get tested twice a week. And it's like, what? It's like either you believe the science and the shit works or you don't. And then, of course, eventually they're like, you know what? Maybe we need to do a little bit of negotiation. Where's my video? Here we go. So finally, like I said, eventually they were going to cave in. So originally, everybody heard that even if you took it, right? What was that? Last week, 2 weeks ago, Dr. Fauci was like, no, you still gotta wear social distance, wear gloves, throw on 2 masks and a face shield as possible. Make sure you keep away from everybody, especially doesn't matter if they got the poke or not. And then of course, 2 weeks later, they're like, all right, how about we offer them, you don't have to wear the face coverings if you get the poke, right? How about that?
We've got to make that transition. If you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask outside. It'd be a very unusual situation if you were going into a completely crowded situation where people are essentially falling all over each other. Then you wear a mask. But any other time,
if you're in a crowded scenario, if you're in a crowded situation where people right now I live here in New York, right? And on the weekends, because I work at the hospital, on the weekends I have to take the train. And this train is packed. I don't mean like social distance packed. I'm talking like where sometimes you get on the train and you're like this. And you got some people with cloth masks that they haven't changed in the past 6 weeks. You got some people with the little rinky-dink surgical masks that are not designed for, filtering viruses. But this is the narrative that they have you to believe. And I'm sitting on the train. I don't wear a mask. I'm not an idiot. And I'm sitting on the train. And I'm like, do you really think that if there was a respiratory disease that you'd be safe sitting in the sardine can with 50, 60, 70, 80 people on a box cart? It's like, come on, man. Eventually you got to wake up. Observable reality should tell you otherwise, right? What you observe on a day-to-day basis will let you know whether there was something going on or not, because you would see people dropping left and right, but you don't see that. Right? You hear about cases, but when was the last time you heard about hospitalizations? The same thing in India. you hear about cases. I hear about cases all the time, and it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is hospitalizations, to the point where even the CDC says, you know what, even if you took it and you still tested positive, they said, we're not going to count it. They said, we're not going to count. I wonder if I still have it here. I was looking at this the other day, or I should say earlier today, where they said, the CDC said that they're not going to count it anymore. Let me see if I can pull it up. If I can pull it up, I'll splash it across the screen. Where they said, even if you took it, but you still tested positive, they said, you know, we're not even going to count it anymore. And I'm like, shit, why did you do that in 2020? When people were coming into the hospital at the very beginning, there were tons of people that came into the hospital, but they just individuals who tested positive. They had absolutely no symptoms. And the first people that came through, they died like that. A couple days. If you turned your back and you weren't paying attention to your patient, that's why they removed all of the restrictions in terms of documentation, because they knew that you had to be eyes on your patient. You didn't have time to sit there and do all that repetitive documentation. You had to sit there and pay attention to your patient. Because you turn your back for a second, next thing your person gets confused, takes the mask off. Next thing you know, need to be intubated. We're calling a cold blue, respiratory distress, right? But the people that came in after were just your regular standard. I mean, where I worked in medical step down. Medical step down is a glorified nursing home. That's all that it is. For acute care, primarily geriatric patients, overwhelmingly. You work on a medical step down, overwhelmingly what you're going to get are typically old people coming in 70, 80, 90 years old. Grandma didn't want to eat. Grandma not hungry. Grandma losing weight. Somebody came in because they got a cough, a fever, etc. Someone didn't feel like going to dialysis this week. So now they're coming in short of breath. The people, right? It was a holiday. They had too much salt, right? Grandpa's CHF acting up, kind of come through for his water pill because he didn't feel like taking it. Now we got to give him Lasix IV. And these were the people that came in. The people who came in at the beginning, like that. You turned your back for a second, night and day. Any nurse will tell you that. The people that came in the very beginning, like night and day, by comparison to the second wave of individuals that came through the hospital. Those were just your typical patients. They tested positive, asymptomatic, or if they were symptomatic, was more than likely related to CHF or some other heart-related issue. And that's the unfortunate reality, is that they're just not willing to tell you the truth. But like I said, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters, offer you whatever it takes. Give you your free, we'll give you a little bit of freedom back, right? You don't have to wear a face covering, right? You can go out, you can hug grandma, you can hug your grandpa, right? You don't have to worry about killing them. Right, maybe you want Tesla? We'll offer you a Tesla. How about some video games? You like video games? It's like, you ever watch like the people that they always tell kids to worry about, like, hey kid, you want some candy? Right? Those people that your parents warned you about, this is the shit that they're doing, right? Whatever it takes to lure you over. You want some candy? Right? How about some Bitcoin? You like Bitcoin? You like Bitcoin? We'll give you some Bitcoin. No, you don't like Bitcoin? How about Doge? You want some Doge? We'll give you some Doge, right? You like video games? What's your favorite video game? I'll get you your favorite video game. Just take it. What's it gonna take? I forgot to include this video in the video that you just watched. And the reason being is you're gonna see what face coverings do to young kids. Now, as a nurse, we typically wear, like, for example, N95s like this. Right, so maybe you might see, oh my God, I'm not even showing myself. Here we go. Such an idiot. So, like I said, as a nurse, this is typically N95s. You might see nurses wearing an N95 like this, right? And some individuals might cover it, for example, with a surgical mask, or, you know, maybe your hospital has, you know, the duck bill, etc., right? So depending upon the type of, and these are basically your N95 mask. Now, these masks are not designed to be worn for long periods of times, and they're never designed to be worn, you know, throughout an entire shift. In fact, if you're wearing a mask like this, and especially if you're wearing it for long periods of times, of course, you're going to sweat. When these masks become wet, they become useless, right? Because they start to become permeable, right? And so these masks, and realistically speaking, from an infection control perspective, you were never allowed to walk out of a room prior to everything that's going on with a mask on. Most people wear like the common surgical mask. I don't think I have one here in the open. I've got boxes, but in any event, so we never took, you know, you couldn't, like, if, for example, if you walked in and someone, you, for whatever reason, you wore a mask, maybe the person had TB, you wouldn't take this mask out of the room. Typically, I would leave my mask, so not to waste it, I would leave it like on the door, you know, because typically they had double doors, and I would leave it on one of the inside doors or on the counter where you got your PPE gear, because you couldn't leave wearing this. You couldn't, like, I couldn't take this mask and then walk into another room with the exact same mask. For purposes of infection control, that was a no-no. You get written up for that one. Now, of course, that's a different story of what's going on now. Now, the nurses will walk from room to room. You got 5, maybe 6 patients, or you're walking into one, C19 room. You walk in from one to the next, and maybe the person who doesn't have C19, you're walking into that room, and guess what? You're wearing the exact same mask as well. We never did that. But the purpose of talking about this is because what you're gonna see what masks look like on young children, and I'll tell you from my perspective, from wearing these masks. When you start to, especially when you start to do any sort of work, you do become short of breath, and what happens is you end up mouth breathing because you end up not getting, especially at least with these masks, they have a little bit of a valve, so it makes the flow of air on the out a little bit easier. And of course, but if you're not, like for example, this one looks like it might have a little bit of a filter on the front, but you do feel the shortness of breath. Especially if you start doing any sort of activity, like it's almost impossible to do quality CPR with a mask on. You're going to get short of breath. There was recently a young girl where they were made to, like for the track meet, and she was wearing a mask while she was practicing, and she ended up collapsing as a result, because you can't wear a mask. Your body's not designed to wear a mask for long periods of time. And so what happens is you end up mouth breathing like these kids. And it's like, this shit is hard to watch. To imagine that, this is what people are doing to their children. Of course, a lot of people, they don't understand. Like I said in my last video, that a lot of what you see is typically related to fear. And this is what the government has done. They've made even parents afraid of taking their children out without a mask. And I see this here where I live in Manhattan. And when I walk by and I see this, and I've never worn a mask. The entirety, even when I thought it was real, when I was watching bodies drop and I was holding the hands of my patient and I was struggling and wrestling with my patients to keep their mask on or to keep their BiPAP water, not to take out their high flow from their nose because they would get short of breath and the likelihood of them being intubated was real. And even then, when I was watching people die, I knew as a nurse, I'll be a nurse 10 years come June. This June, I will have been a nurse for 10 years. And I became a nurse because a friend of mine, when I had my own business, I did swimming pools, and I worked in swimming pools, and I was a day trader. And I became a nurse because a friend of mine that I went to church with, he ended up having a stroke in a basement, and no one found him in time, and he couldn't get the clot busting medication to remove the clot so that he would regain movement in his body. And unfortunately, he ended up with a stroke with left-sided weakness until the day that he died. And one day, I was busy. I had multiple pools and clients to take care of, and I was supposed to go see him. I routinely saw him at least 2 or 3 times a week because their children were not involved in their life. And I didn't go one day because I was busy, and I was around the area, and I said, you know what, I'll just stop by tomorrow. I was feeling a little tired, and I could have stopped by, and I didn't. He died that night, and that's what drove me to become a nurse. I became a nurse because I had compassion for individuals, and I wanted to change, to give up my career, to give up my business as doing swimming pools. I did swimming pools and jacuzzis and spas, everything related to that. And on top of that, I also did day trading, and I gave all that up so that I could become a nurse. And it'll be 10 years now that I will be a nurse in this June. It'll be the 10th year that I've been working as a nurse, and to this day, I still enjoy it. It still brings me a lot of joy taking care of people when they're sick. And when I see stuff like this, it's very heartbreaking to realize that individuals have been fooled because individuals do not want to give you adequate and proper information. And as a nurse, it is our responsibility to educate our patients so that they have informed consent about their health. This is the responsibility of any healthcare practitioner, whether you're a doctor or a nurse. It is your responsibility to educate the public so that they have adequate information so that they can make a proper decision on their health. And what individuals are doing is immoral. It is immoral what they are doing, that they're promoting fear, that if you don't do what they comply, that you are somehow at risk. We live our lives every day at risk. Every day that I walk into a patient's room, I'm not quite sure what that individual has. And of course, we take the needed precautions. But it doesn't stop me from rendering care to my patients. The reality is that overwhelmingly, the vast majority of the people that I have cared for have been geriatric patients. Overwhelmingly. And I've seen a lot of things that were not the norm when it came to the type of care that we gave to individuals. There were people that just didn't show up to work. And as a result, people died. Without adequate information, people die. The number 3 leading cause of patient death is medical error. And of course, all of this plays a role in caring for patients. You don't know if the patient is non-compliant. You don't know what the patient's comorbidity is. You don't know what brought the patient. All you know is that someone who got labeled as a C19 died and you're next. And that is just not true. As a nurse, I would, if I believe to this day that this was the cause, and that this is exactly what I would be pleading with people to do what is right. But I know what went on in the hospital. And at first I disagreed with that nurse who had exposed this, because I had minimal perspective. The only perspective that I had as a nurse at that time was watching my patients die. But afterwards I realized that what was going on, because I had more perspective as I started doing research, as I started looking into PCRs, as I started looking into the tests, as I started looking to what they were classifying as a C19 and and who are these individuals that die. And I saw the little bit of information that they gave you. And of course, that is not the way that we practice. It's never been the way that we practice this, to give the public the least amount of information so that they could draw the conclusion that we want you to draw. It is always your responsibility for you to make an informed decision. And the sad part is that many are not informed of what is going on. Hopefully more of you are starting to realize it. Watching videos like this, and this is what children look like. Children look, as you can see, these children are short of breath. Even this baby is having a hard time breathing with a face covering. It's not the way that we were designed. If that was the case, if we believe in evolution, we would have evolved with a face covering. If God wanted us to have one, he would have gave us one. The reality is that we don't. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.